All right, chapter 21. And this one is about, I felt like it was where it all came together, where all of the conversation so far came together. Let me just find the summary we did for this conversation. Now, there was one phrase in the book that I didn't catch when I was reading it on Christmas morning. I feel like I want to share that because it makes the rest of it make sense. Where is it? Sometimes I have a bit of trouble finding something on Zoom if I want to share it. Okay, let's try again. There it is, okay. So at the beginning of the chapter 21, at the beginning of the chapter, there's a conversation about prophecy, about how God will use prophets to channel information. And then we can see how it's in this chapter where once the divine order for reaching and guiding men have been satisfactorily installed and begin to give clear and unmistakable evidence of being controlled and used by intelligence with power to read and interpret mysteries inscrutable to human eyes, it's not difficult to see how infinitely superior to their fellows become the position of all who choose to work in harmony with the condition laid down by those who from their higher vantage ground were proffering help to all who were still walking in darkness and the shadow of death. So we have all this information God has made available for the benefit of men. The supply have no restriction, but that of demand and in transmission, based on the capacity of the vehicle, which means the person that's channeling. The prophetic, how do you pronounce this word?
Conduit, prophetic conduit.
Prophetic conduit taps the infinite ocean of the water of life, so you can receive all kind of information, but as you have seen in the case of our own psychic, a sense of satisfaction with results attained took possession of the prophets. So once they start to feel satisfied with the results they got, then they stopped channeling and the stream was allowed to run its own course. So basically it's a situation here where when you see you're channeling, you're receiving information, you're passing it on, and then you start to feel this satisfaction and contentment with like, wow, look at the results. And somehow that stops for the development of the prophets. And then the priest will come along and then they will go into opposition to the prophets and shut them down. So that piece I felt was necessary for our conversation today. And so based on that, if we look at the email notes I gave, I had this 3 quotes that I really liked. Page 212. God was widely ordained that all activity engaged in any mission may not be able to see what its final result will be. And while we're at work, our certainty of success must be of faith springing from God's blessing, resting upon our wholehearted endeavor. If we could already see onward to the result of our labor, it might tend to negligence, and Father will not suffer us to be tempted above that we are able to bear. Hence, he drops the veil and leaves us to feel that the responsibility of success rests upon our own shoulders. So, how do you feel about those quotations? So, say we get an inspiration and we're like, wow, I really want to do this thing. I'm feeling inspired, and you take action. But then we don't know if it's going to work. And God has intended that to be the case. Virginia.
When I was reading this, I don't know if you ever read the book The Alchemist.
Yes, Paulo Coelho.
Yeah, Coelho. Yeah, he's so he gets this dream and about the gold, right? He wants the gold,
Yes.
which he doesn't know that it's really like right there.
In the backyard or
Yeah,
something?
it's
Yeah,
right
yeah,
there.
yeah. Okay.
But he goes on this journey,
Yes.
right, to come back to find out where the gold really is.
Okay.
But he needed to go on the journey. And if he knew that, he wouldn't have gone on the journey, right? So, and I see that happening with us when you see the end result,
yes.
that you want to get to that.
Yes.
But there's so much learning along the way that it's the journey that's really important. You might
Okay.
neglect that, right?
Okay. Yeah, and all the learning that entails. Wow. Yeah, I like that perspective. Okay. Yeah. And you can't see if you're going to succeed, that's the language you want to use. You can't see the end, how it's going to come. Are you going to get the opportunities? I'm thinking about when I knew I had to go back to school, but I didn't know I was going to end up a doctor in all of those beginning years. And I used to rail going, if only I had known that I was going to make it, I was going to succeed, I wouldn't have had so much anxiety and fears. And, so I'm just looking back at what those experiences were about and that I didn't know. Looking back, it's a straight line, but not while I was in it. And I always wondered, like, that's so stressful. Why are we doing it that way? What
Building
did we
faith.
know?
You're building faith.
Yeah, okay, I like that. We're building faith. Right. Because if you have to keep going, despite all the obstacles you see, you're developing certain characteristic in yourself. Wow, okay. Judith, what are you?
I agree. I can't think of anything to add that.
Yeah. Are there times when you had to do stuff that you're like, this is something that I'm inspired to do, but I don't know how it's going to turn out, and I couldn't see the end result, but looking back, you can see it. Have you had those experiences in your life?
Well, I guess doing this kind of work, getting involved in divine truth somehow is like that. You don't know what's going to happen. Joining a group like this, I get scared because I don't know what, people are going to see about me or whatnot.
Yeah.
And it turns out that actually, it is okay. My perception was what was distorted, or I was actually believing a false truth about myself. That's just something I came to realize recently.
Oh, nice. Okay. Wow.
Reading an email that Mary had sent me about, she said, once you realize that you were taught a lot of false truth about yourself as a child, once you realize that, it'll be quite invigorating for you.
Okay.
And so that kind of clicked in me. It's like, oh, all my problems because believing false truth.
Wow.
I mean, you still have to learn about yourself and become humble and to all the things that you've done wrong, but it was actually quite refreshing. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Laura.
Hello.
Hey, we really began recording, and we're just talking about the first point in the email about, that God has ordained that when we engage in any mission, we may not be able to see what its final result will be. And what does that bring up for everyone? So do you feel ready to share your ideas about it? We can wait. That's okay.
Yeah, I'll just get the email open and catch up a bit. So I won't share just. Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Is Michael still on the call?
Yeah, he is. So while we are at work, our certainty of success must be a faith springing from God's blessing, resting upon our wholehearted endeavor. English. I used to study as a child, so on top of it, you're like, the tongue is trying to figure it out. Okay, so what are your feelings about that? I guess it's like what Virginia said, it's about faith. It's about developing faith, because you have to put your whole heart into it, and you have no idea what the outcome's going to be. And on earth, we have a very strong addiction to outcomes, to success.
and controlling outcomes and success.
Yeah.
So, to avoid failure. But I just think of, even in my own life, how you get these just little suggestions, a little bit of a lead into certain directions. And you think, oh, well, let's just try this and just try that. And then you look back and think, wow, where did this all start?
Yes.
And it's probably in the smallest of actions.
The tiny little action or invitation that you said yes to.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it led to something really, really big. Wow. Yeah, no, it's true. Huh.
Mhm.
Okay. But yeah, there is this stepping off into the unknown again and again, and the faith you need to do it. Ugh, my stomach is churning just talking about it right now. I had to do this so many times, and yet you'd think I get used to it at any point. Ugh, hate it. Okay. Other comments? No, okay. So the next. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't see you.
Yeah. Sorry, it's probably pretty loud here. It's raining. But it kind of fits in with what I've been working on this week, and it's like sort of tapping into God's faith in us in our endeavor. So God has this faith that we're able to, bring to fruition love and help others and all, and it's sort of, I don't know, it feels really, I don't know, I can't really put words to it actually, but it feels good. It feels comforting that God's got our back, even when we don't have our own back, sort of thing.
Wow. We talked about this last week, Laura, where you were going to experiment about what the faith God has in us, right?
Yeah.
Wow. What did you get in that?
I feel like so much has opened up for me from that.
Wow.
Still, yeah, I don't know. I'm still sort of sitting with it and feeling into it, but yeah, but it feels like God has so much faith in us that we are capable of loving, and yeah, and I guess if we just sort of tap into that, then we can grow our own faith in ourselves and match that with God's.
That was genius for you to come up with, like, oh, I should ask that question, and I've been like on edges all week going, what did you get? What you get? So that's a good question to ask actually for all of us. We can ask God, what do you have faith in me? What faith do you have in me? Because that's what Laura asked. And look at her, she's just beaming, just glowing. It's like, I want some of that juice. Okay, that's brilliant. Okay, and then the next point, if we could already see onward to the result of our labor, it might tend to negligence, and Father will not suffer us to be tempted above that we're able to bear. Hence, he drops the veil and leaves us to feel that the responsibility of success rests upon our own shoulders. So there's this implication that actually the responsibility of success is not on our own shoulders, but we need to not see onward to the result of our labor because it would lead to negligence. What are your feelings about that? Why would it lead to negligence? I think the example given in the chapter was if John could have seen the outcome, which is that Jesus is a Messiah, it would have led to some negligence on his end in some shape or form. Laura.
Is it that like God doesn't give us any tasks that we aren't able to cope with? So like every single emotional experience, he's given us the gift, like the ability to cope with that, even though it feels too big for us.
which I usually don't agree with. I'm like, I can't cope with it. I disagree with you, God. But then maybe if we could see the result, which is like tremendous and huge and long lasting, maybe we'll feel like I can't cope with that, and you just shut it down. You don't even proceed.
Yeah, like it's too much.
Yes.
Yeah, it seems, and I feel like I've felt that a few times where you come up with an idea, or an idea drops into your head, and
Yes.
you kind of think, oh, that's too big for me,
Yes. I guess because we're starting to see the kind of like, okay, if I start this, it could become that, and then it's going to become a company, and I'm going to have 20 employees, and oh yeah, no, forget it. So again, we're looking ahead, and that shuts down the development in that moment of that one idea. Yeah. Well, to be frank, whenever I look back at my own story of when I started schooling, I didn't know I was going to end up in medicine. And if God had told me, oh, we're urging you to go back to school because you're going to become a doctor, I would have said, nope, forget it. And I would have never continued on with the journey. Though I also complained that if I had known I would succeed, I would have not been so stressed. So, which was part of the faith building experience, I guess. So there are lots of things that if I had known where it would end, I would have never done it. So that's a good point. Why is that? Why would you feel like those ideas that you had, Laura, that you go, oh yeah, no, this is too big for me, I'm not going to do it? Why did it take us there?
I think like it's got a little bit to do with our self-worth and our self-belief of feelings that we've had projected at us from other people, like from our parents, of not being capable of doing things, or you're too young, you don't understand, that kind of thing. Like, all of the mess that we've had sort of projected at us in our life about what we're capable of doing, and none of it's been like if we had just asked God what God thought that we were capable of doing, we'd probably be doing a lot more with our lives than what we are now.
Maybe that's a good one to ask, because that's a different question than faith. God, what do you feel we're capable of doing? Which is different than, God, what faith do you have in us? It's a different question.
Very similar.
So next week, Laura, you're just going to be like, Virginia, go ahead.
I feel like with my own experiences that I'm not ready for that step yet. Like, to think of the whole big picture and the end result, I'm not ready. But if I get little steps, and it's interesting to me to be going into that direction, those little pushes just have seemed to work. Maybe that's just the way I work. But
no, that's the case for everyone.
And then it seems like doors open after you take those little steps, right? Other doors open, but to look at the whole thing, and it's a totally different direction than what you're going in life, just seems overwhelming. And I know I would not have accepted it at that time if I had known what those little steps were going to take me to.
Absolutely.
And probably for a lot of the reasons that Laura is talking about.
So self-worth, projection of emotion, that we're not capable of doing this.
Yeah. So I guess we work through a lot of things as we work our way to acceptance, and through how we're being guided and where we're being guided to.
Okay. So the looking at our first journey of his path, it's like a book of, I want to write a book, and this is how I had to process that I want to write a book. Like our first experience of like, I want to share my experiences with people on the earth. And then what I'm getting most from reading these chapters one by one, slowly doing the book group, what I'm getting is that for every piece of his process, a specified person came in and do just that one role. At no point was Afar alone or figuring it out by himself or had to do any of it by himself. Every step of the way, somebody very specialized came and helped with that piece. And then that person was happy to then move back and pass it on to somebody else. Nobody else around him felt like they were the be all and end all. Everybody were very relaxed about just doing their little thing. And even with the writing of channeling the book, after I was being helped with the band of helpers, somebody had prepared Robert James Lee's to be able to receive. Like there were so many steps done, step by step by step, that he actually, in contrast to the result of this book being written, his role, his actual work was probably a small piece of the pie, but his desire was huge. Like that, there was a powerful desire. And but in actuality, what he had to do was just a small step compared to what everybody else had to do to make it all come together. So that's been the piece that I've really released a lot of my arrogance and the self-reliant pieces, going, yeah, these are like celestial angels, and they're just doing, little stuff here and there. They're not all doing everything. So just step back. I'm probably being helped a lot all the time. And I just have to do a small piece of showing up. So it's been really nice. Like I'm actually relaxing. I can feel my body beginning to let go of stress from reading a chapter. So maybe there's something here about having to take the small steps and then receiving all the help in it, that also not being able to see the result. Yeah, there's something here about that. Sorry, I went on a rant there. Other comments? Judith?
Yeah, there's a mentioning in the chapter, isn't it, about time? We want immediate gratification for things, and the span is much longer. And I think that's part of the reason why we don't know, because we would be disappointed right away if we knew, I guess, and we wouldn't try. I'm sorry, not being angry. I mean, there's a part in the chapter where it says, like, we want immediate gratification. I can't really find it.
Okay. And
things take much longer to come to fruition, basically.
Yeah.
It's been going on for millions of years,
Yes.
And
to not be disappointed that we think it's not going to happen. I don't think we're disappointed with the outcome. The outcome, I think, always blows our mind, but that we're disappointed that it hasn't happened, and therefore we think it won't.
Right, that's the thing. And look at the book itself. I mean, it was written over 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Now there's a resurgence of it.
Holy, I'm just, I'm beginning to really appreciate that 100 years ago, somebody channeling this kind of information about the prophets and Christ and what it was about and channeling. And it's like right now from Divine Truth community, we're like, oh yeah, we know all that. It's not a big deal. But 100 years ago, this is mind-blowing stuff. Like there's no such thing as reincarnation, and we're all meant to be we're all to inherit God's kingdom, and like, wow, that's pretty profound. That's a lot of truth. I'm beginning to appreciate the work. Virginia.
This chapter and reading this, it's really, I'm excited.
Wow.
Are you guys excited? Like, how do you know these little steps? Where am I going to end up? Where am I being led to? Like, I'm just, I'm like curious and excited about it, which like leading up to now, I've certainly had my ups and downs this year. And, but it's seeing this, like it just, and reading it, understanding it, it's like, thank you for everybody's input, because I'm just feel like this excitement now.
Okay. What's the excitement about? I could use some.
Because I don't know where I'm going to end up. Like all these little steps that I feel like these steps that I need to take in different directions, and where I'm just excited about it. I mean, who knows where that's going to go?
Wow. Okay.
I'm sure it's the same for all of us. It's the same for all of us, I'm sure.
It is for all of us. And it's beginning to help me feel like, just focus on this one step. Please don't look ahead. Please don't do that. You're going to shut yourself down. And I have received many inspiration in the past where, because I looked ahead, I stopped pursuing it. many, many missed opportunities, especially when it comes to writing stories. So I've started to move on that passion again this time, but trying to stay only 50% focused on future. It's not 100% dropped yet. It's slowly coming down. So small steps, you never know where it will lead. Okay, wow. And that we have lots of guides helping us. There's a big plan. And the inspiration we're getting is probably our small contribution to the big picture. You know, we're just fitting into one of the pieces as a gift that we wish to give. So we'll never know how much that mattered. And that if we feel like, oh, it's just a small piece, well, no, it's not. Okay. So moving on, page 203, there was this feeling we had in humanity that is there continuity of life? And if in the black beyond there existed a God, why not also a life? And this inquiry, this pain, this desire grew and grew and grew. So there was the fervor of a helpless race appealing for assistance. In reply to this, God threw open a door of revelation in the corridor of sleep and gave free access to the gift of prophecy with its almost infinite possibilities. And then we are not taking that gift seriously, or we don't understand the significance of it. And so, sorry, I lost my page. I lost my email. It snuck out to the other window. So then, so we could not appreciate receiving prophecy in sleep state. And now we have to have prophets that can channel information. That's what I'm understanding from the chapter. Is that right? I'm just going to look for that page again. Oh boy. Hold on, if you're raising your hand, I can't see you right now. Nope. Okay. I will have to just wing it. So, any comments about that? Judith and then Virginia?
Well, I feel a little confused because, I'm reading that, then you go to the next page, 204, and it says, if men only understood the true nature and value of this divine response to human need, they would stand appalled at the awful magnificence of the forces here placed at their disposal. But the thoughtlessness of man is proverbial. So does that mean that we would, if we're shocked that we don't even know this, or if we knew this, we would be so upset that we didn't see it? That all the information would come to us in the sleep state?
Yeah, I think this, because chapter after chapter, they keep talking about if only you knew what you are able to learn, and are learning in your sleep state that you could have brought into your wake state, and that it's all available to all of us. And we're probably already accessing it, but we choose to forget when we wake up. Yeah, so there is definitely, they keep saying, like, if only you knew in your awake state what is available to you, you'd be shocked at this lost resource, this missed opportunity. Yeah, I think they keep implying that chapter after chapter. Virginia?
This confused me a little bit because I was under the impression that even if you didn't remember everything that happened in your sleep state, it is affecting you in the physical world and when you're awake.
Okay.
But this makes it sound like it doesn't. that learning, if it's not conscientiously
Mm-hmm.
learned and remembered.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's something like I ask to remember before I go to sleep, because I want to remember my sleep. Sometimes I remember some, and sometimes I don't remember a lot. Like I don't know if it's because I'm not ready to. I don't quite understand it all, but I thought that it still affected us, our state, or what we knew. I'm confused by that. Like, so if we don't remember it, is it just like all gone, whatever you learned?
Or are you somehow applying? Well, I think it would be, maybe it's where faith comes in, where you get this feeling of, this is what I need to do, this is how I need to act, I need to take certain action. I don't quite understand it, but it's a strong feeling. Let's just go with it. You know, if you can have that faith, because it's probably even your own soul telling you, look, we figured it out in a sleep state, you got to do this thing. And you're going, I don't know why I have the strong feeling, but okay. Could be how that works. But then there is something about, well, I'm thinking that the same addictions that stop us from remembering sleep state is stopping us from acting what we learn in our sleep state, because we want to be in the world, we want to be of the world, we want to be accepted. So those addictions are going to stop us from remembering and also from acting on whatever we learn, because then it will not be the in thing to do in a society that we want to belong to because of our addictions. So I think if we didn't have those addictions, then we would remember. But one way to work through it is to actually be honest with yourself and say, I don't want to remember my sleep state, because that's what I'm doing. I don't want to remember my sleep state because, and then start to make a list, and then all those feelings will start to come out of you. I don't want to remember my sleep state because I don't want to feel shame, I don't want to feel judged, I want to have control of what I do. Whatever it is, everything will start to come out of you once you become conscious of the choice you are making. I don't want to remember my sleep state because, and let yourself feel the tantrum. I am not going to remember my sleep state, and you can't make me, and just get all huffy and puffy about it. And then emotionally, all the truth will start to come out. The other thing I am doing is I usually make a list of things I want to do in my sleep state before I go to sleep. So I'll lie down and I'll say, okay, tonight, here's what I want to learn. I want to go and talk to my guides about this issue and that issue, and I'm stuck in this block, and this is what I want to do tonight. So I actually make a list of to-do list before I go to sleep. And then many times I wake up middle of the night going, oh my God, I get it. And then I get up in the morning going, what was it? I got something. I understood it. I got it. Like, what was it? Or in some issues, I get up in the morning and I go, I don't remember it, but I really do have to work through all my anger. I'm just going to take it verbatim. I got it. I don't know why I got it, but I got it. Okay, fine. And there are some mornings when I get up and I go, I've understood something. It's clear in me now. And I think I'll probably be acting from it, but I don't remember. But I feel like I know something now. But I just relax, because as I go through the day, it'll start to come out of me. This understanding will start to come out of me. So it's kind of fun to give yourself things to do. I mean, for 8, 9, 10 hours, you're doing something. Make a list. So when I'm blocked, I will say, I would like to understand this block tonight. I want to talk to my guides about this issue or that question, or how can I solve this problem? Yeah. Okay, so there is that. I found my email. Now, the aim of prophecy, page 203, its simple object is to prepare mankind for entrance upon the next phase of existence on the most advantageous terms. So what God wants is to prepare us for our next phase of existence with the most advantageous terms. I'm thinking with the best possible opportunities for growth or development or awakening to sin, or so we can avoid hell, or I'm just thinking. That's what that means, Judith.
Yeah, I think it means everything like that. And also, I was thinking like, oh, it meant like when you die, but it's like, no, it means all the time. You don't have to die for God to be continually trying to give you information and prepare you for your next phase of existence, which is like being a better person.
Yeah. And also the next stage of existence is in one way, isn't it? Because that's what Jesus was here.
Yeah.
Is here again to teach. Like, and one is the next stage of our existence from God's perspective. It's an invitation given to us.
Yeah.
And we can have that while we're still alive in physical form. I don't want to say alive anymore because we're always alive, but we still have physical form.
Yeah. And just getting rid of injuries one by one, if that's what it is.
Yeah. That is of huge advantage to us, isn't it? To release our injuries. And to not be in addictions, to not sin. Yeah. What else does it bring up for you around prophets?
Me or everyone?
Everyone. Michael?
May I go back to the sleep state for just a moment?
Sure, absolutely.
I figure for myself that I'm not letting any of my sleep state through, but as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking or feeling, God is so thorough. There must be degrees or ways that the sleep state slips through or seeps through into consciousness. And so maybe, I recognize, as you were talking, I recognize I have some like vague picture of what the sleep state would be if I could remember it.
Okay.
But I'm thinking I should be asking, well, how does my sleep state actually make it through to my consciousness?
Yes,
it must, God must want that part of our consciousness to come through. And so how is it doing that already?
I love that question. Okay, this is a really good question to ask. How does sleep state comes through my consciousness in my awake state?
Like, okay. When you wake up in the morning, we often feel like we've got a resolution or the day seems clearer.
Yeah.
That's could be a feeling of coming from the sleep state.
Okay.
Or an inspiration to do something. That could be, we don't see the end result of it or the whole picture like maybe we saw in the sleep state, but we feel there's something there and we're inspired to step that way.
And once you ask this question and actually start to maybe intuitively start to receive answers right away or throughout the day, once you ask the question, you're choosing to see. You're saying, I want to see how this is happening. So that is you kind of, reverse engineering back into sleep state that way, because then you can follow the thread back and maybe start to remember what happened. The inspiration I received to write children's story, and I finally did it yesterday, it was so much fun, was about a child and her sleep state experience. So I'm just kind of using my imagination to go, I'm a 4-year-old and I'm upset and I had a bad day and I'm going to go to sleep. And now here's what I think will happen in the sleep state when I go to sleep, how I'm being treated, how I'm being helped. So it kind of gives me the freedom to, I'm just writing a story, it's just my imagination, and somehow maybe some truth can enter, but there's no pressure on me to have to be accurate. I'm just writing a story. So interestingly enough, the inspiration is about writing what a child experienced in his sleep state. And it's a couple of times I was writing a character's name and I started writing me, I. And I'm like, no, I'm writing about a third person. Like, it's not an I, but maybe I'll start to remember my sleep state as a child, because that will heal me to remember that as a child, I did go somewhere. Because in these books, when I'm reading about Willie Peg and Dandy, their stories really affect me. That all these beautiful children, when they're in heaven, they go to sleep, they're treated like little prince and that is there. For 8 hours a day, these children are treated the way they deserve to be treated. And there's something very healing for me about it. So maybe it'll heal me. But anyway, I just wrote one story. I gotta keep going. Don't look at a big picture. So I like that question, Michael. I have a feeling that if you start asking that and start journaling on it, you probably start to go back to remembering. Yeah. Thank you. Do you have more comment?
When you were talking about how well they treated Bully, Peg, and Dandy, it occurred to me, isn't it great to go someplace where you are loved and welcomed and well thought of, and then you can bring that feeling back.
Yes.
To this life where
yes.
it can be unlike that.
Absolutely. And that is something our children can teach us, because they are experiencing positive experiences. If we could be open to that. But for me, I, even until last year, had this competitive feelings that my children have guides that love them more than I do. and these are adult kids. So I had to go, oh, I'm feeling competitive with them. And only sometime this year, I was able to work through enough emotion to go, I am so grateful to them that they love my children more than I ever can while I'm in my current soul condition. So I can only imagine parents of little kids going, what do you mean you go somewhere where they love you more than me? Like, I'm the parent here. Laura, go ahead.
I was just going to add on to that, what you were saying, Michael. And I think that's part of the problem, isn't it? The contrast. Like when we come back to here from our sleep state as a kid, the contrast in the way that we're treated is very drastic. And like, that's why we don't want to remember, because it hurts, like we have to face up to the fact that we're most of the time being abused and treated poorly. And the recognition of that there's another way to be treated and that I deserve to be loved, like that's too much to kind of grasp.
A good point. That's a good point. Could also be why we don't want to remember. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe we're able to do more service and more helpful things in our sleep state, and when we come back here, we're so blocked by everybody's resistance to the same service. Could be why, Michael.
And then carrying on your thought, Laura, if we go and we feel as loved as we are by God, and we come back and we have our emotional injuries, those two are going to be pushing, the love will be pushing against the injury. And so it's part of the mechanism, I'm guessing it's part of the mechanism to force us to feel the injuries, that discomfort, and to address it.
Yes. Yes, the contrast. That is giving me some ideas. The contrast between the two states. And for some of us, it could be that we're attached to our facade in our awake state, and in our sleep state, we are not very pleasant, and we don't want to know, because we want to wake up and go, but I'm a nice person, and you're attached to the facade. That could also be. But then my fear of knowing, oh God, what am I doing in my sleep state, is one of my blocks. I don't want to know that I'm a terrible person in my sleep state, so I don't want to remember. That is one of the blocks we may have to process.
Or if I don't think I'm worth very much, I won't want to remember how well I'm treated in the sleep state.
Yes, that contrast. Yeah. Wow. I've been, chapter after chapter, we've been talking about sleep state, and the group has not wanted to dig into the conversation until today. And I'm going, oh, yes, we are talking about sleep state today. So it took a while, and I can see how every chapter had to keep bringing up the same topic again and again. And I've been talking to God about it. Like, nobody wants to talk about the sleep state stuff. What's going on? And that includes me. But then today, maybe we're talking about sleep state because we don't want to talk about the next thing coming up in our chapter. that what's coming up is very profound, and I'm just like, ooh, I cannot be talking about this. So should we move on? Okay. So I mean, I don't grow up Christian, so this is where I'm kind of going. I don't have a framework for this kind of idea, but the next part we're talking about how Jesus the prophet became Christ. That transition of God selecting one person to be a prophet that could be, who could then uplift his condition to such where he could receive. And that beautiful, like that crescendo of that story of like how in that chapter, page 205, middle of chapter, Jesus saw his race hopelessly fighting against the power of darkness which filled the valley of the shadow of death, and hear the multitudinous and agonized cry of the slain come like a thunderous peal, shaking earth and heaven, send, send. And then turning his eyes heavenward, he saw the host stand ready, but helpless for lack of a prophet who might be caught upon and become a leader mighty to save. Prostrate before the blinding glory that enveloped the throne, he beheld a type of a redeemed humanity. So I'm thinking he could see that this is what's possible, the humanity redeemed, pleading for aid with groanings which cannot be uttered. And from the invisible, he heard the troubled inquiry, whom shall I send? And I feel like if this was a movie, this is that moment, you know, that climax right there. And God is saying, who do I send? And then that choice that Jesus makes in that moment. Then the soul of Nazarene leaped upwards towards its God, and in a courageous, holy consecration, flung itself beside the supplicant and cried, here am I, send me, and in and through me, in whatever cost, let thy will be done on earth, as it is done in heaven. And I go, okay. Wow. Like, I have a process of emotions about it. Like I said in the email, I process some emotion. No, it's been like, wow. Your thoughts about that, Virginia?
I see it as such an amazing act of faith and surrender,
yeah,
to God, and the ultimate of, you know, act of being of service.
Yeah,
it's just, I just think, wow, my faith needs to grow a lot. Well, because, you know, we want to control things, and he just completely surrendered and had this faith and love that to do that. It's just so amazing.
And it was love that drove his decision. He saw the suffering. He saw what was possible for us. He saw the suffering in the hells. He saw the suffering on the planet, like, and he saw the angels waiting to help, but needing a vessel. And it's like he saw it all. And it's like, wow. I mean, talk about not seeing the big picture. He saw the big picture going, yeah, it's pretty bad. I offer. Wow. Yeah. I feel pretty speechless at that point. It's like, that's good story writing. Yeah. Other comments? Michael?
I don't know how to unwind this exactly. Do you remember? I think it was in the Secrets of the Universe talk, the second one, that Rhea asks, how did AJ know he was the Christ, or how did Jesus,
Okay.
you know? So you hear about this young person's growing up beside the river and exploring and being able to see unseen people and dealing with his father and stuff. And it's a touching, homey story that I can relate to and makes him very personable.
Okay.
And then here's another person's description of Jesus's calling and acceptance. And I'm wondering what the resolution is. And I'm thinking probably there's a lot of awe on behalf of Ramaya's, and also probably a lot of humility on Jesus's part, and maybe an injury there that prevents him from saying just how big it was.
Yeah. Because
so I think the two stories can exist.
Yeah, has to be about the humility. But it's also about making it, because what God is trying to say is that this is for all of you, and which is what Jesus is trying to say. This invitation to be at one with God is for all of us. It is an invitation for everyone. So if we make it too much of like, well, he was chosen, he was special, then we're going, yeah, well, he was Jesus, so what are you going to do? We just... And I think that humility is a way of like going, no, but this is for all of us. And how do you, which is why in the other chapters we were talking about how, yes, angels could show up they could, take a physical form and talk to us, but it's not going to help because we'll just be in awe and we have to see somebody else like us in that struggle. And then we accept that is possible for us. But I mean, it does make sense that by the time Jesus was, I guess at this point in this chapter, is he like close to being at one with God? But then he was a prophet, so you can always see things others can't see. So age probably doesn't matter. But I'm just thinking like, was he in the mid-20s, like 20s, early 20s? Or is that the place when he accepted, oh boy, the Messiah is me? Do you remember how Jesus speaks about it in his talks, where he's going, at some point was in his late teens, where everyone's looking for the Messiah, and at some point he go, I have a bad feeling it's me. And then it took another 10, 12 years to convince him. So this must be that place where he saw the suffering and he feels the love and he's going, yeah, okay, someone's gonna have to do this. It's kind of, it's pretty profound when you read the chapter that way. You're like, whoa. And the idea that whenever I read all these characters, all these celestial spirits in this book, I'm thinking, well, they were not celestial spirits until Jesus came and opened the heavens. They were all pretty fine people, probably in the sixth sphere, but none of this was possible until somebody opened the celestial sphere. That's pretty profound. Yeah, Judith, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. Well, also what Jesus said is that, God washed away his sin. So he washed away Jesus' original sin.
Oh, no. Jesus never had any sin.
Yeah, well, that's just it.
But
he never had.
What God removed was a feeling of low worth.
Yeah.
God removed the feeling of unworthiness. I hope I'm getting this right. He removed the feeling of low self-worth that we all have as human. That was removed from Jesus. So it was felt worthy of God's love. But then he actually never had any sins.
No, yeah, but we do. We have our parents' sin, but he didn't inherit them because
That's
God
right.
didn't allow that. Yeah, or.
Oh, so then he didn't. Oh, that's okay. That's a good distinction, actually. Like, did he then not absorb their emotions, or did he process and release it?
I don't think he absorbed any of those original emotions, the original sin, as he calls it, or the parents' emotions. He didn't absorb any of that, so he didn't have the unworthiness in that. But the thing is, God still gave him free will choice to choose whether or not he wanted to do this. He never, and that's what I think is so profound about it myself. Yeah. And
this chapter is really demonstrating the free will, the choice. Yeah. He was given a choice.
Because the Christian faith doesn't teach that. It teaches that he knew and he did it irregardless of what his will was.
Wow.
So that's my understanding of how I was raised, a Catholic. So.
Wow. It's a powerful move. Yeah, putting it all together. It all comes together in that one paragraph right there. Like, this is how it all came together and why, and the power and how significant that choice was. Wow. Michael.
I'm going to butcher this. This is all through my mind, but divine love comes. Isn't it a desire for truth that is a predecessor of divine love?
Yeah.
In the sense that if you can put away an error, divine love will come with truth, or something like that.
Yeah.
So Judith was wondering, you were wondering, did Jesus have any error, or was he always without it?
Yes.
But he was, and I don't think we know unless he tells us, but if he had an error, he would have, recognized the truth, or if he had an injury, and then the divine love would have come probably right away to replace it. And
because of his love for truth.
So as if he had these injuries or false beliefs about love, as he was receiving divine love, he was letting them go, and losing them.
That would have been the vehicle through which that would happen. So that would be there. I mean, he experienced a lot. He had to forgive. Right? He had to constantly forgive. He still is constantly forgiving the pain coming at him that he does not deserve. Like, he experienced a lot of violence and abuse.
And he doesn't say, nobody has said that he did not inherit Mary and Joseph's injuries, right?
He didn't have any sin. He's mentioned this recently in his talks, that he didn't have any sin in the first century. So I'm just going, wait, how does that work? I know that he didn't have God removed feeling of low self-worth from him, but I don't know. Well, these are all good questions. Hopefully they'll answer. that is, but I mean, unfortunately, this time around, he has sinned. He has absorbed errors. He has low self-worth. It's like, oh God, how rough that has to be when you never had to experience it the first time, and now you do. At one win, which is like, even the contrast is even more huge. Like, that's more pain than any human ever have to feel. Because you never had to experience any in the first time. And then you have soul union, and then you come back and absorb sin. Like, oh God. Whew, I hate pain, so I have no idea how to do it. That's again. So I feel like Jesus is making even a bigger sacrifice and offering of love than the first time, from where I'm sitting right now.
Can I throw one more thought in?
Yeah.
A little bit below that is, Ramaya says, such was the order of that second birth, to which the Christ afterwards called the earth, a birth in which Jesus, the prophet of Nazareth, became Jesus, the Christ of God. I hadn't noticed that before. It's the second birth. They could have said new birth. This was the first new birth, or the first rebirth into a divine being.
Right. Oh.
And if he's the first, it implies that there would be many coming after him.
Yes. Oh, that's a good point. It was already being implied there, wasn't it? He's the first of his second birth, which is, and one minute God is the second birth.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the first of those kind. Dang. Good catch, Michael. I just couldn't get that chapter at all, so I just didn't pay attention. Okay, thank you. Okay, other comments, other thoughts about that? About that passage of Jesus choosing, saying, pick me. Oh, 3 of you.
Lots of us.
Yeah, let's start with Laura.
Go ahead.
Let's start with Laura.
Well, I was going to bring up just something else. So if it's on topic more, if you guys want to say it first, I was just going to sort of,
Okay.
So Michael has something more related.
Michael, then Judith, yeah.
Just a feeling that keeps coming back to me at this is Jesus, as he was growing up, he looked to the prophets of Israel to see what the qualities of the Messiah would be. And I don't remember exactly, but I'm sure that they said that the prophet would feel the heart of his people, something like that. And I'm sure that Jesus felt all of the hurt that the people around him were feeling.
Yeah.
And that was probably a clue to him, because that, God, I can feel this. Maybe it's me. No one else seems to.
Because from what I remember watching the talk, everyone were waiting for the Messiah. So he was actively looking for the Messiah. He wanted to meet him. He was like, who is this Messiah? I really want to know and meet him. So, okay. Yeah. God, what is it like to go, oh no, it's me. Oh my God. I imagine that moment many times. What was that like when you get to that realization? Judith?
Oh, and also he thought like everyone had a different perspective of what they wanted the Messiah to be, like a warrior. And it was like, oh, this isn't what the Messiah is, which is probably even harder to come to terms with. Well, my question was, and why was Jesus the first where had other people come along in the past who had their sins washed away or cut off and they didn't take on?
I seem to remember that Jesus did say that this was offered to others and wasn't accepted. I've heard him say that once. Yeah, and that he feels so much joy and gratitude for the gift that this has given to him and Mary that he accepted it.
Yeah. And it's interesting, why wasn't it given to Mary as well as him? I don't know if he's ever addressed that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Michael?
Well, when you said offered to others, were you including Adam and Eve, or did you mean other humans?
I don't know who he referred to.
A man and a man. The first parents, they had the offer.
Yeah, he didn't, in that conversation that I'm thinking about, he didn't mention other names.
Okay.
A man and a man had no sin because there was no one before them, so they were pretty much born without sin.
But the enone, the offer for enone with God.
Yeah, they didn't.
Yeah, I don't know. Virginia, did you raise your hand? And then we'll move to Laura for the conversation she wants to bring up.
I just thought that the reason Mary was not the one offered is because of, in those times, that her word would not be accepted by
the gender. Yeah, because of the gender.
So I believe that's the only reason, because God wouldn't have chosen.
Yeah. Laura.
I was a bit confused. There seems to be like they were talking about the resurrection a lot through this chapter.
Resurrection or enone?
I thought it was talking about, it's not really a resurrection, isn't it? But
yeah. I think it was enone.
It was when he died, wasn't it?
No.
And then came. No, okay, I must be off.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Never mind.
No worries. These are the clarification questions that we're like, wait, how did that work? Which is good, because then we can send it to Mary, or if you watch this video at some point, that you give them some clues. Michael?
Thinking, Virginia, about your question, I'm thinking that God would have given her love to anybody that had a pure desire for it. And it's not that my opinion is, it's not that Mary wouldn't have been heard. And we know culturally they would not have heard her.
No, that's what Virginia means.
But if she had that would be man's thinking. I would think that if Mary had those longings early, she would have received the love and could have been the Messiah.
No, I think this is about the foretold. Like there was already kind of like going generation after generation, that there was a preparation for the male half of this soul. I have a feeling that the gift of, removing the sin of low self-worth and all of that, I'm just going to go on a limb here and go, no, I think it was always meant to be offered to the male half in our particular history of this earth. That's my guess. Yeah. Judith?
Well, there's a lot mentioned in the story or in the book about the condition of Mary, his mother.
His mother.
So maybe that had something to do with it.
And like the quality of sin that you absorb, as well as the quality of faith that you absorb.
Right, of her being able to house a person like that.
Because Mary's parents, that she had a really bad childhood, right? Like it was pretty bad. Wow, more questions than answers, which is a good conversation. It's a good discussion. It's the questions. And we come up with some good questions for us to ask for our own intuitive investigation. Laura?
Isn't, like, from God's perspective, the soul just the one? Like,
right. So then you go to this question. Okay. Yeah.
Because then it's not like Mary missed out, but it's like that they both benefit. I'm not really sure how that works.
But it was only removed from the male half, not from Mary. The low self-worth feeling that was removed in order to give the gift was only removed from Jesus and not Mary. But then Jesus had said that maybe on the other planets, where we have all this other, there are like, I don't know, 8 or 9 other similar universes, maybe it was a female half that was given a gift. And he also has said many times this time, like maybe Mary will get to enlightenment before him this time. See how he goes. Like he's not attached. Michael?
Maybe Jesus was born first and God removed that feeling of unworthiness and then let him go out and see where his desire played out. And it happened to turn out to be, he took the path that he became the Messiah. And if he had somehow diverted from the path, maybe if Mary was born later in the 1st century, she would have gotten that unworthiness released.
That's a good point.
2 shots at it.
Yeah, that's a potential too, isn't it? Okay. Well, maybe one of us can take these questions into our sleep state tonight and wake up with answers and write them down real fast before it's gone. All right.
Even if it's 2 a.m, we'll write them down.
Exactly. Okay.